Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Joe and welcome back to another video. So I want to make the follow-up video today to a video I made a few weeks ago about 5 of the craziest borders within the United States, and I want to show you all 5 more wild borders within the United States. So with that being said, let's get right into it, and with our first example, which is being Connecticut and Massachusetts. Now this is a great example of surveyor error, which as you learned in the first video, is the cause of a lot of these borders being weird. Basically, surveyors, the people that the country sent out to map the country and draw straight lines to separate the colonies or states, they made mistakes. They were humans. Everybody makes mistakes. And they didn't draw these lines perfectly. And when a surveyor makes a mistake and nobody noticed it until later down the line, it created these crazy borders that we see now. And that's exactly what we see between Massachusetts and Connecticut in the westernmost point right here. So Massachusetts goes out a little bit further west than you would expect, and then all of a sudden juts back east to create our tri-state point between New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. Weird example, but the even weirder one is between these same states where we have what's known as the Southwick Jog. And this is a unique example because there are actually things here. There are shops here. There's a farm here. People live here. And this is, again, the exact same thing. Surveyors made a pretty crazy mistake when they were drawing the border between the colonies of Massachusetts and Connecticut, where they all of a sudden went very far south. And what now is today there, you have a McDonald's, a supermarket, a CVS. Like I said, people live here. There's a great article here for Mental Floss going over exactly how all of the surveyor errors happened here. To create the Southwick Jog, and if you really are interested in learning more about this story, I highly encourage you to go check it out, to read this article on Mental Floss and learn all about it, because it's a really interesting read if you like this kind of stuff. Alright, so now into our next example, we're going to go over what is known as the Kentucky Bend, and this is one that I did not know about until very recently. So Kentucky is right here. And most people think that it ends here at the Mississippi River, except for that's not completely true. There's this small area called the Kentucky Bend that is still considered part of Kentucky, despite being a peninsula separate from Tennessee. So there actually is a pretty interesting sign to welcome you to the Kentucky Bend. There's even a tri-state border right here, obviously. And there are some people that live here. I dug up the Wikipedia article about this. There used to be a lot of cotton in this area, so the population was pretty high because of that. It's a very hot area as well. And there still are about 100 people, about 9 people, that live here nowadays. So interesting, not too much here, but I think it's pretty cool that a place like this exists where it creates some really weird geography that I didn't know about until very recently. So now for the fourth example that I'm going to have in this video is one that was pointed out in the last video's comment section, and that is the border between Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. This one might be a little bit easier to spot. You can see it further out on the map than you can most of these. But yeah, Indiana and Ohio do not meet up perfectly with each other. So basically Michigan, the further east you go, Michigan also goes further south. Now, is there anything in this area? Actually, yeah, there are some small towns here, which is pretty cool. Again, surveyor errors are going to do their thing. So for the fifth cool border that I have in this video, this is not one caused by surveyor error, and this is also one that maybe more people know. This is a pretty famous one, and that is known as the Northwest Angle in Minnesota. So Minnesota obviously is a state that borders Canada, and it also includes what's known as the Northwest Angle, the Angle Inlet, whatever you want to call it. And there are some things here. There are some islands outside of it as well. But this is mostly a rural forest area. And when you look into the full story about the Northwest Angle, it's actually really interesting and goes into why this is the way it is. So the Northwest Angle has about 100 people that live there. It's mostly water. But what I found most interesting when I was actually looking into this video was that in 1997, some residents of the Northwest Angle suggested leaving the United States and joining Canada. But even crazier, the next year, the U.S. representative of Minnesota, he proposed legislation to allow the residents of Northwest Angle to vote on seceding from the United States and join Canada, which is completely crazy. I don't know how more people don't know about this. I didn't know about this part until pretty recently. And this actually angered an Indian reservation, which holds most of the land in the Northwest Angle. So nothing ever really happened. This never joined Canada. But this is something that's still discussed to this day, both with the Northwest Angle and also with Point Roberts, which is probably the more famous example, which is directly south of Vancouver. There's Point Roberts, Washington. There are some people that live here, and especially with COVID and the pandemic, it was really a struggle for the people living here, because when you all of a sudden can't easily get over a border between a country and a country and, travel, it became a lot harder for people here to live their everyday life. Because, for example, the kids here that live in Point Roberts, they have to go to school in Blaine, Washington. So when they would get picked up by the bus or when they had to go to school, the most direct way or the easiest way was just to drive into British Columbia and then all of a sudden go back south. So they had to cross the border multiple times a day just to get to school, and multiple times a day to get back. 4 border crossings a day. And I guess during COVID, they could still take a boat to get from Point Roberts to Blaine, Washington. But that's asking for a lot. And when you need basic things, like maybe you don't have all the grocery stores here that you would want, and that goes especially for the Northwest Angle, it became really hard for these people to live their day-to-day lives during the pandemic when border crossings were harder than they had ever been in the past. So we'll see what happens with this in the future. If you want to know my guess, I don't think that we're going to end up giving any of this land to Canada, even though it probably would make the lives of the people living in these places to be a little bit more simple than it is now. So this is a little bit of a shorter video today, but I just wanted to bring up 5 more of these crazy examples of U.S. borders. There are still some ones that I have not mentioned yet, so if you want to see a third video about this, let me know and I'd be happy to do it. We still have all the overseas territories as well. That's a whole nother video that I'm excited to bring to you at one point. So with that being said, this was fun for you to make. Hopefully it was just as fun for you to watch. And let me know what you think of this down below. Like the video, subscribe, give a comment. I want to hear your feedback. It's important to me, and so that more people can find my videos and watch them. So yeah, thank you all so much, everybody, and have a great day. I'll see you later.